Hello, everybody. Welcome to another Comic Boom Comic Source collaboration. It's your DC Spotlight for the week of November 6th, 2024. Man, what a week. Been highly anticipating this one. Happy Absolute Superman week for those that celebrate. And if you read comics, you should be celebrating Absolute Superman week. This book is amazing. Hope everybody got a chance to check out my interview that I did with Rafael Sandoval. Obviously, I had Jason Aaron on the show a couple times, really be teasing it. It was almost like we were running out of things to tease and be able to talk about without spoiling. So it was really great to be able to get the artist perspective, the visual perspective from Rafa. So, English is his second language. He wasn't comfortable with doing an audio interview. So it's a print interview. It's over on the LRM online website under the Comic Source tab. Or if you follow me on social media, you'll see me tweeting about it. Highly encourage you to go over there and read what Rafa had to say, because it was really interesting. He brought very much a different perspective, and it's clear that he is really putting his all into this project, and it really shows when you read the book. It's absolutely amazing. So overall, I thought it was a pretty good week. We've had sort of only 1 week since the All-In era started, I feel like, that's was sort of below average, and that was last week, but it was one of those weeks where it was a fifth week in the month, so there weren't a ton of books. But other than that, man, there's some great books, some new series that are debuting this week with JSA and Batgirl, some continuing stories like Birds of Prey, Poison Ivy, that are really excellent. So yeah, I'm feeling once again really encouraged by what DC's doing in the All-In era. How'd you feel about the week, Rocky?
Yeah, I loved Absolute Superman. I will be doing a deep dive there at some point, which we'll be handling. That'll be on your channel. We'll be doing a deep dive on that. But we'll be touching on it a little bit, but we'll be saving most of the spoilers for the deep dive. And yeah, just fantastic. I'm loving the absolute side of All In. That's clearly still my favorite. And yeah, the other titles, there's an air of excitement about beginning anew. There's a feeling of freshness in the air for DC. And it's still riding high. It's still riding high. Even my retailers started to up his orders of just the standard DC books, which was very rare for him, because he was down to just having very few shelf copies. And here in Southern Alberta, he was getting lower and lower on the shelf count, but that's slowly starting to itch up because of people coming into the shop. So hopefully that'll keep up, and the DC All In will bring more people into the comic shop.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. We say it all the time: a rising tide floats all ships. And so DC doing well, Marvel doing well helps everything. I sort of feel like DC definitely on the upswing. Independent's been great for a long time. Marvel is sort of in the rear. But what's interesting is they're not in the rear when it comes to sales. But again, I think it's like the term Marvel Zombies has never been more appropriate. People buying out of habit. I want the books to be good. Don't want people just buying them out of habit. But it's clear that there's a lot of comic fans out there that are really excited about the stuff that's coming out. I was at the comic book block party in LA this last weekend at the Revenge of comic book pinball shop. It's really an interesting shop. A lot of trades, very small. They do have a new book wall, but not back issues or anything. So just like the newest stuff on the wall. I don't know what they do with it after they take it off the new wall. A lot of trades, and then they have a ton of pinball machines and a few video games, but they have this outdoor space, and once a year, this is the second time they've done it. They do all kinds of events there. This is the second year where they've done this comic book block party, which is put on by Patton Oswalt and Jordan Bloom, who do the Minor Threats world over at Dark Horse. Big comic book fans. Patton Oswalt, obviously, known for his comedy, is a comedian, goes on tour, does stand up, what have you. Been in a ton of stuff, Ratatouille and King of Queens and all that. But they put this comic book block party on. It's basically like maybe 10 signings at a time of different creators, and then they swap out once an hour. So it's like 4 blocks where you get 10 creators that are there. So they had a ton of great talent there. Jeff Johns was there. Brian Michael Bendis, like his first West Coast show and forever, nice. Was there. He had a giant line. I should have said hi to him right when he got there, before he got behind the table, and when he was just kind of standing there and nobody knew who he was. But I was in the middle of talking to Mark Waid, so I didn't get to chat. I wasn't going to stand in line to talk to Brian Michael Bendis. Not that I'm some big shot or whatever, but I in the time I could have stood in that line, I could have talked to 15, 20 other people. So that's what I did. Rick Remender, Jeff Johns, some big Jeremy Adams was there. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just took a day trip, drove like 7 hours to get there, hung out, drove 7 hours home. Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time. So, but what was clear based on the amount of people that were there and the excitement and books people were talking about is, comics are doing pretty well. So, it's a great time to be a comic book fan. And like Rocky mentioned, we will touch on Absolute Superman here, but we're not going to go deep dive. Look for a later in the day tomorrow or first thing in the day on Thursday, a page by page, because I think the book is that important and it's that exciting and it's basically that awesome that we want to go page by page and talk about all the different story beats. So with that being said, we'll dive into the first book this week. It's Action Comics number 1074, written by the aforementioned Mark Waid, art by Clayton Henry and Michael Shelfer, colors by Matt Herms, letters by Dave Sharp. And let me just say before I get into this book, I did have Mark Waid on the show last week to talk about Justice League Unlimited, which is coming up at the end of the month. Hope you guys all had a chance to check that out. I've read it. It's amazing. You definitely want to pick it up. Pre-order time has passed. That doesn't mean you shouldn't tell your retailer that you want a copy. Now's the time to let them know, because maybe they need to get reorders in and what have you. The sooner you tell them, the better, and it can help for the pre-orders on issue 2. It's awesome. It really blew me away. So go check out that interview with Mark. And as far as Action Comics goes, man, I really love where this weekly Phantom story is going. We saw at the end of last issue, Superman was thrown down into this phenomenon in the Phantom Zone, I guess we'll call it, this well of eternity, which was like being thrown back in time, and he manages to escape from it. So he escapes into the past, but that's where he is in terms of time. Where he is in terms of space is he's on Krypton. So he goes from not having any power in the Phantom Zone because it's the Phantom Zone and there's no yellow sun, and he exhausted his little solar powered wristbands that were powering him up. He goes from being non-powered in the Phantom Zone to being non-powered on Krypton because it has a red sun. So right from the start, what I love is he's wearing his family's crest on his chest and it's on his cape. And he realizes, I can't be here. I shouldn't be here. I don't want to affect the time stream. He takes his cape off, turns it inside out, and wraps it up to cover the shield on his chest. It just kind of looked great. Great job by Clayton Henry, because it very much looks like something a Kryptonian would wear. Like when he ties the cape around himself, it looks Kryptonian. It looks like their clothing. And he's trying to remember how to speak Kryptonese and figure out what's going on. And it's Mark Waid at his best, because it's Mark Waid writing a story about his favorite character and making everything make sense. Even when we go back, flash back to the Phantom Zone where Mon-El is left there fighting Ether, this almost godlike being in the Phantom Zone. We find out Ether's motivations and why he's trying to destroy the Phantom Zone. The explanation of why it's gone from being ethereal and everybody being corporeal, being intangible to being tangible. Like, that's all explained. It's really cool. It's Mark Waid being very, very meta, doing what Jeremy Adams does a lot of times, right? Where he takes these continuity things that don't seem to make sense and he brings them in and crafts a good story. And it gives us an in-universe reason for why things are the way they are. Now, on top of that, we get a little bit of the police state feel of Krypton, which it's had in some various iterations, going back to kind of the John Byrne World of Krypton series, where science is praised above all, and knowledge and that sort of thing, but to the point where you've got to believe what the Science Council believes, and even if it's science and even if it's fact, if they don't believe it, then they're not going to buy into it, right? Which, it's a little meta, it's a little relevant in terms of the political climate for the U.S., if you will, with people saying, fake news or what have you. But it works. It creates this dramatic tension. And it's great to see Superman interact with his parents when they're much younger. He's gaining a perspective on who they are. But again, always with the knowledge in his mind that I have to be careful here. I don't want to alter history, if you will. So yeah, I don't know where it goes from here with Superman trapped in the past, on Krypton without his powers, and apparently with him and Jor-El and his mother about to be thrown in jail, basically, because they're looking at Jor-El as kind of a dissenter. He's not following the rules of the Science Council. He's not sharing his scientific discoveries and what have you with them. And the reason he's not is because he knows they're not going to believe him, right? Like he's already gone to them and said, hey, the core of the planet's unstable. They're giving him the whole, you're crazy, Jor-El, and what have you. So, there are, although there are fresh ideas, there are also some of these classic ideas that Waid's bringing into the story that we've seen throughout the origin of Superman, which is a good he's striking a good balance between ideas we've seen before that feel familiar, that ground the story, with new ideas. Superman being there, traveling back in time, these solar bands that allow Superman to have his powers even when he's under a red sun. So really great story. And have some developments in the backup too, which I'll talk about in a second. But let Rocky give any thoughts on the main story. What do you think, Rocky?
Well, this represents a fundamental reinterpretation or reimagining of Jor-El's relationship to the Phantom Zone. Up until now, in almost every single iteration of Superman, Jor-El was known as the creator of the Phantom Zone, and he's credited with finding the zone and using it to house basically Krypton's criminals. And here, I think it's probably because of our modern day real world sensibilities. I guess Mark Waid or DC are so afraid of Jor-El being, God forbid, a flawed person that. It's not, Jor-El creates the Phantom Zone and he finds it, but it's implied here that his motivation to use the zone might be more to try to save the people of Krypton, temporarily putting them in the zone if Krypton is going to explode, and then release them. Jor-El has very serious reservations, and he doesn't want them to, basically his Phantom Zone tech is confiscated, and they're going to use it essentially to house criminals, and that's not what Jor-El wants, because he thinks it's unethical. Now that's new. That's absolutely new in Superman lore, Superman history. So there's a rewriting of that, and it's fitting. It's fitting because that's something that Superman never knew that about his father. He maybe judged him, maybe had prejudged him, assumed that his father was since his father created the zone, that his father had certain. He may have made some assumptions about what his father thought of the ethics of it, and so I like how Mark Waid sort of brought that into the modern age and sort of redeemed Jor-El. Jor-El has more of a stronger moral compass than maybe we've been led to believe in the past, and certainly is a far cry from Bendis's interpretation of Jor-El as being, well, we won't go there, but I really like this. I like what Mark Waid's doing. I like this reimagining and revitalization of Krypton and what it says about Jor-El and Laura, and what a wonderful scene where the smile on his mother's face reminds him of Lois. And I thought that was a really nice touch. But yeah, it was just a really great main story.
I've seen that idea before. I don't think it's Waid that's come up with that. I'm trying to remember where. It might have been in the... Do you remember that Robert Venditti did a Krypton story a couple of years ago? Might have been there where I saw
is that
idea
when we did art by Michael Van Oming? That one?
Yeah.
World of Krypton?
Yeah. I think it was that series that had that idea as well, but I don't even think that was the first time. I think that idea has been around before, and maybe it was even in another medium in Superman Adventures or what have you. So it's not 100% new, but I do agree that it's a little more prominent here in this story. So as far as the backup goes, man, written by Mariko Tamaki, art by Skylar Patridge, colors by Marisa Louise, letters by Becca Carey. The art continues to be absolutely excellent. Like, I really, really love the art style that Skylar Patridge is bringing here. I do feel like her art's a little more textured than I remember it being when I first saw it. In this entirety of this series, it's been a little bit more textured, and it really works for the story. But I still don't really understand what's going on, other than Supergirl. It almost seems like she's going to be teaming up with whoever this prisoner is. We get a chance to see them for the first time, but they're fully clothed in a robe with this helmet, this golden helmet. I still don't have much of a handle on what's going on, other than we get to see Supergirl being a badass. So it is getting a little bit more entertaining, but there is no part of me that really understands what's going on. And there's every part of me that's like, man, in order to understand the story, when it's over, I'm going to have to go back and read the whole thing together as like one complete story. And, maybe I've been overly harsh on Mariko Tamaki. She's obviously a very talented writer. She's, won several Eisners over the last couple of years. And maybe it's just the challenge of creating the story in this very limited space that she has in these backups, these 8 pages. That's just really tough. And and so maybe I'm being a little bit unfair because again the art is fantastic, but yeah, it's just I don't think that getting this story in these very small bites is a satisfying reading experience. That's the way I'm going to put it. So, anything to
Yeah.
add, Rocky?
No, I echo all your thoughts, and I'm generally disappointed in the art as well. This isn't. There's something choppy about the art. I'm not a big fan of the Scott Petch's artistic approach here. It's not working for me. It just this whole thing is just a massive disappointment, and yeah, I don't even care where it's going. It just I just don't care. I have no idea where it's going. I'll be even more harsh and say that 8 pages, we're at 32 pages already, and we still don't know what's going on. And I've got no reason. We're at no reason to care about this story because the 32 pages in, we still don't know what's going on. And I think we're supposed to be captivated by the mystery. I'm assuming narratively that's what Marika Tamaki wants us to do, is to pull us in and get us excited about what this mystery is. But it's fallen short for me. But all the power to those who are Supergirl fans and fans of Skylar Patridge, and Marika Tamaki certainly earned her stripes. This is just a miss for me.
Yeah. You want to talk about the covers at all? I'm curious what your favorite cover is because there's some really fantastic covers.
There's really, yeah. Well, the first cover, I don't know who it is. It's the Phantom King attacking Superman. I don't know who the artist is, but
Sebastian Fiumara. Yeah,
Yeah,
I go back and
really
forth
good.
between that one and the cover C where it has Superman in his Kryptonian clothes. That's by Ibram Mustafa. Like those, and the Clayton Henry one's cool too because it's Superman shaking his father's hand. But the B and C covers, I don't remember. Yeah, I don't remember which one I ordered. But yeah, I don't think you can go wrong with any of these 3 covers. They're all awesome.
Yeah, no, for sure. And even cover C, I think, is by I don't even know who it is. I can't tell. But it's gorgeous. All the covers are gorgeous.
Yeah, that's the 1 in 25 incentive by Mark Spears, which is it's really cool as well. So
yeah.
All right, let's move on. Next up, another one on my list. Action Comics was in my top 5 as well. It's Birds of Prey, number 15, written by Kelly Thompson. Sami Basri is the artist. Adriana Lucas on colors. Clayton Cowell on letters. So, I'm a big Kelly Thompson fan. I could go as far as saying I'm a Kelly Thompson stan. Like, I just love her work. That being said, I think the first 12 issues of her Birds of Prey run were probably some of my least favorite. I still enjoyed it, but some of my least favorite work that she's done. Partly because of the art, but also the story. It didn't pull me in as much as it could have. But I talked about this last issue with the beginning of the All-In era and how we're sort of getting back to what I think of as the Birds of Prey in terms of this kind of covert espionage, undercover type female team with some really great characters and great character interaction. And that's exactly what we got last issue, and it's what's continuing this issue with Cass Kane trying to infiltrate this multinational corporation they've literally bought Amazons so they can study them and try to harness their abilities to weaponize them in some way. I think this is sort of like a company that purports itself to be kind of new age, but is really looking to secretly being like an arms dealer sort of company. And so, yeah, they definitely want, weapons and abilities and the option to offer, superpowers or superpowered weapons or what have you to governments and make themselves uber rich. And so Birds of Prey get wind of this. They send Cass in undercover to try to understand what's going on. Her cover's blown somewhat in this issue, and she's captured, but then in the amazing Cass Kane way, she manages to escape, but it might be a little bit out of the frying pan into the fire, if you will. Because she escapes to the level, kind of this basement below the level that she was on, where all the Amazons were in holding cells, where she herself, after she was captured, was in this holding cell. So she escapes down to this like sub basement level, and they know the powers that be know that she's there. They lock her in along with what this corporation is calling a failed experiment, right? So apparently they experimented on one of the Amazons, and it went terribly wrong. And on the last page, you can see it there if you're watching this on YouTube. She's going to be confronted by one of these Amazons. And don't get me wrong, Cass is a great fighter, but going up against like an uber-powered Amazon, I don't know how well that is going to go over. Meanwhile, the rest of the Birds of Prey are sort of waiting to hear from Cass. Hey, should we go in? Should we not? She's already missed one check-in time. Barda specifically, who refers to Cass as Little Bat. She has a bit of a heart-to-heart with Black Canary, and just the tension that's there, and how much her teammates care about her. That's the character work. That's the emotion. That's the dramatic tension in the book from Kelly Thompson. And regardless of me not necessarily enjoying the storylines for the first couple of arcs, that was a personal thing. What Kelly Thompson has nailed from the beginning, from issue 1, page 1, has been the interaction between these characters. It has been the highlight of the book, and it has been consistent throughout. Yeah, now it's married to the type of action and type of story that I subjectively prefer, which makes this even better, for me personally. But throughout the character interactions, the way she writes Barda especially has just been amazing. It's been a real joy, and it really shows the strength of Kelly Thompson. Like, when you go back and read her Black Widow run at Marvel, read her Captain Marvel run over at Marvel, and you see that same really amazing character work. The voices that she gives these female characters, from the way they interact with each other to the vocabulary, everything is just so authentic, very grounded characters that feel very relatable. And that's why I think she's just a fantastic writer. So I had to put this in my top 5. It's been a while since Birds of Prey has been in my top 5, but man, these last couple issues have been just bangers. So what are your thoughts on it, Rocky?
Oh, yeah, I don't have much to add. It is, I actually do find I didn't mind last issue. This was the best issue so far for me since issue 1, just because it's taken a while, but Kelly Thompson is this felt like the most character driven issue, or at least the most character work in this issue. I will say, it didn't feel like a lot happens plot wise, but there was enough satisfying character work and dialogue, and we got to, considering how many players she dealt with, how many characters she scripted in this issue, it actually felt like it was, ironically, it felt like it was moving forward, even though plot wise, it didn't actually move forward all that much, to be quite frank. I mean, Batgirl just got caught and then wakes up, and the Birds of Prey themselves had a glorified conversation, yet it felt satisfying. We had some character work, and so it wasn't in my top 5, but it is getting better. Kelly Thompson this is getting to be a little bit more of a satisfying read, Birds of Prey, and I hope this is a sign that it just keeps getting better.
Yeah, it's been last two issues, like you said, last couple issues have definitely been my favorites as well. So okay, up next we have something a little bit different. It's called Little Batman Month 1 rather than Year 1. It's from writer Morgan Evans. We've got art in the book by John McKell. Ian Herring is the colorist. Lucas Gattoni on letters. A little bit of a different take. So if you're watching us on YouTube, you see the cover of the book there with Damian. It's Damian, and he's kneeling down, and instead of Martha and Thomas's bodies there, like you would see on the cover of Batman Year 1, issue 1, which I think was Batman 402. You see a little Batman costume and like a little mini tuxedo. They're his clothes. So definitely an homage to that cover by David Mazzucchelli for Batman Year 1. But this is month 1. And so this is a series for young readers, or maybe they consider all ages, where instead of Damian Wayne becoming a Robin, he becomes a Batman, a little Batman, and he still fights alongside his father and what have you. He's learning how to be Batman, and someday will take over the mantle. It's very much sort of this juvenile style of art. That's not to say that it's not spectacular. I love the look of Damian. This sort of more cartoony style gives John McKell a lot of leeway to give a lot of character acting and what have you in the face. Bruce Wayne himself, he's like the Tick, or how I've seen Jay Leno drawn in caricature back in the day, with a giant chin. Like, his chin just, it's it's massive. Like it sticks out like so far. It is just huge and it's hilarious. And
Yeah.
this is just a really fun book. It's Damien in a way that we haven't seen before. He's a little bit, the word I'll use is petulant. Um, he's a little overeager, and but you sort of get it, right? Like the Damien that we had that I found to be really unlikable when he first showed up in the mainstream DCU. He was entitled and he felt like a spoiled brat, and he was constantly complaining and just like over the top entitled, and just thought that he was better than everybody. This is a Damien that feels so much younger. I mean, he feels like he's like maybe 5 or 6, maybe 7 at most. So you sort of forgive his egocentric behavior, because when you're a kid, you sort of think the world revolves around you. And that's okay because you're a kid, and the world does sort of revolve around you. Your world's very small. Um, and so it works. And I don't take it as, him being a little punk like I did, the old school Damien. So this is just a lot of fun. And what I really enjoyed about it is the art more than anything. I think if you take the same story and you use traditional comic book art, it would feel a little bit like talking down to the reader in some way. But when you bring in this style of art, it's clear that it's, all in good fun. It's wholesome. There's not this level of sarcasm. It's not trying to be more than it is. And it's hard not to root for this Damien, even though at times his behavior is a little bit questionable. But again, you forgive it, right? You're like, oh, he's just a little kid, and he hasn't learned yet. He doesn't have those life experiences. So I really enjoyed it. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, but I sort of like the idea of Damien coming in and being a sidekick to his father, not as a Robin, but as a little Batman. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I was going to. What are your thoughts on it?
I thought it was first in terms of artistically, John McKell's art. I mean, you mentioned the chin of Batman here, Bruce Wayne. Bruce Wayne has a beard, and
Yeah.
he's got this huge chin, and it's also a beard. And then it's weird that when he's wearing the mask, the Batman mask, it seems to just cover the beard. So it's so weird, but it's kind of funny. Like he's got a very unique sort of Bruce Wayne look, and he's a hulking Bruce Wayne character. And I just thought I like his relationship with his son, and it's more of a, dare I say, it's a little bit more of a functional relationship. I get the sense of a less dysfunction between father and son here, and this is more of almost a little bit more of a tropey relationship. He's sort of a mischievous son who loves his dad. He's little Batman, and he wants to go on adventures, and dad has fun too. This is a Bruce Wayne that I would say is a little bit more prone to fun too, and he wants to have fun with his son. Also, but often though their adventures, it's kind of funny. Sometimes they involve like picking up garbage in the park. He gives his son a sword, and they're using the sword to pick garbage, to poke garbage in the local park. So they do public works too. They don't just fight crime, which is kind of funny. If I didn't know better, it's almost like this is almost like a cartoony version of a little bit of Adam West Batman, a little bit of Neil Adams Batman, a little bit of of Grant Morrison, but all with extremely lighter touches. And I really like it. I like Damien. I find him likable, even though he's kind of, he wants recognition for being Batman, even though he wants so badly to tell the kids when he's at the gala at the Wayne gala at the Wayne house. They're having a party, and of course he's got to sit with the little people, he's got to sit with the little kids, and he wants to, and they have a discussion about Batman, and he's just dying to tell them that he's little Batman, and of course they think it's all Batman is the hero, not little Batman. And he so desperately wants attention, and his little narcissistic self is just crying to blurt something out. And Bruce Wayne shows up at the right time to make sure he doesn't spill any secrets. And I like I said, it was fun. It's not, I don't know if it's, well, heck no, I had a lot of fun with it. This was in my top 5, and I really like the artistic style. And this is something where I definitely plan on picking up the whole series. I love the cover myself, and even symbolically on the cover, it's sort of symbolic thematically to what's going on, because on the cover it's a classic Batman Year One cover, but instead of his dead parents, it has an empty Batman suit and then an empty suit that he has to wear to the gala, and it's symbolic of little Damien Torn. He really wants to be Batman, but he also has to be a schoolboy, and so he, it's that little dilemma that he has in his little boy, I want to be a superhero head, and I think it works quite well. And yeah, no, it works. Big smile on my face, and instead of pearls on the ground, you see, I don't know if that is that bubble gum, or he's got little shoes, and I'm not sure if it's like bubble gum or something in a jar. But anyways, I think it's funny. It's entertaining, and it put a smile on my face this week.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Fantastic first issue, definitely. All right, first book on your list, Rocky. Batgirl #1, Mother, Part 1 of 6, written by Tate Brombal, art by Takeshi Miyazawa, Mike Spicer on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters. Take it away.
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge Cassandra Cain fan, and one thing about I want to give Tate Brombal, writer Tate Brombal, some credit for, and artist Takeshi Miyazawa. This felt like I was reading. This felt like 22, 23 years ago when I'm reading that original Batgirl series, and he captured Tate Brombal has captured the relationship between Lady Shiva and her daughter Cassandra Cain. And now this is not a sophisticated opening issue whatsoever. It's very tropey, but bloody hell, for me it just works because it's predictable. Basically, it's a bunch of ninjas are attacking Lady Shiva, who's having a conversation. It starts off with Lady Shiva having a conversation with her daughter, saying, "By the way, we're going to be attacked by ninjas. They're out to kill us. We're going to have to deal with them." It's like, and what I like about what Brombal has done here is that Cassandra is sort of exhausted with her mother before she even starts talking to her. She can read her mother's body language. They can read, they both speak the language of motion. They know when either one of them is lying to the other one, not only because they're their daughter and their mother and daughter, but because that is actually a skill set that they have honed from a lifetime of training. And these are also characters that have literally, both of them have killed the other one. Lady Shiva has killed her daughter, resurrected her, and Cassandra has actually, put her mother on a meat hook hanging over the Lazarus pits in the Destruction's Daughter trade paperback, which I encourage people to get. So they've literally killed each other, and they've both been resurrected at the hands of each other. So they have an extraordinary history together, and for them now to both be hunted by this sort of mysterious ninja clan, I think just is very, very interesting. And ultimately, it's the dialogue throughout the issue and the character work and between Lady Shiva and Cassandra Cain throughout the issue. You can go in blind. You don't need to read anything before this. You get a sense that these are characters with very different mindsets, very different histories, and yet obviously they're related. And Lady Shiva is somebody who's got she's been revered. She's got her own temple. There's a church that literally worships Lady Shiva that ends up being attacked by these ninjas that are looking to ultimately kill Lady Shiva and Cassandra Cain. And basically it ends with them being attacked within this church. But frankly, I feel right back into it, and this isn't complicated, and frankly, it feels right. It shouldn't be complicated. This is just good old fisticuffs with decent character work. You hit the ground running, and bloody hell, while it might not be a sophisticated plot in the opening issue, there's a sense that we're going to get more as it progresses, and I just love seeing this. I have a big smile on my face because I love Cassandra Cain, and I love her relationship with her mother, dysfunctional as it is. That's how it ought to be. Bloody hell. I love it. And I really enjoyed this, despite the fact that admittedly it's not a complicated story, but it's definitely on one of my top 5 this week. What about yourself? Do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's not a complicated story to start, but there are a couple things that Tate is bringing to the story that I think are interesting and can hook people. Because you're right, it is very much in the vein of what we've seen before in terms of the relationship between Cass and her mother, which makes sense, right? Because Tate has gone on record as saying that Cassandra Cain is his favorite DC character,
Right.
and he's a big fan of Lady Shiva as well. So you would expect him to first of all show us what has been the status quo, or kind of honor what's come before, but gradually add his own wrinkles, right? So you mentioned the ability that Cass and Lady Shiva both have to sort of read body language. What's so interesting is, how many times have we been told what Cass sees, that people are, they can't, you sort of can't hide your feelings with your body language because it's subconscious, right?
Mm.
And so a Cass can tell when someone's lying and when they're not. But the fact that Lady Shiva's one of the few other people that also can read body language means that she's also one of the few people that can fake body language. So her mother's telling her one thing, and Cass and her body language is also agreeing with what Lady Shiva is saying, and Cass doesn't want to believe it. She's like, no, she's lying. She's lying. Even though most people can't fake their body language, they can't lie with their body language. They can lie with their words, they can lie with their mouth, but they can't lie with their body. But Lady Shiva technically can, and Cass is not believing her, not even believing, not only not the words that are coming out of her mouth, but also not believing the body language. That's really cool. That's really interesting. It adds another wrinkle to sort of a dysfunctional mother-daughter relationship. Um, and by the end of issue 1 here, you start questioning, well, maybe Lady Shiva is telling the truth, because these mysterious ninjas that show up, and as the story unfolds, Lady Shiva's talking about, this ancient order that's out to get her, and they keep repeating this motto: "What is buried always comes to light." So that's the other thing that Tate is bringing in here. This idea of something unknown, a mystery from the past that's really intriguing. And so, yeah, I enjoyed this issue a lot more than I thought I would, um, because although I expected Tate to sort of honor what's come before, I did not expect as much of a fresh feel. And that's on me. Shame on me for not giving him credit. I haven't read a lot of what Tate has done. Um, I know he did the Green Lantern Dark, which was I didn't necessarily care for. So I didn't really have expectations for this, but I was really impressed with what we got. And on the other side, artistically, I was also very impressed. So I only know Miyakaza's work from Met Cadet U, the Boom series that's written by Greg Pak. And over there, it's very much a kind of a young manga style. And that is sort of what I expected here. And you almost see it on the cover that Rocky's got on the screen if you're watching this on YouTube. And so that was sort of this style that I expected in the book. And yes, there's manga influences in this art, but it skews much more toward kind of a DC house style, or more of a traditional Western style, with some manga influences. So I was really impressed with the artwork as well. I didn't expect to enjoy the art as much as I did. Yeah, that splash page with the skyline and Lady Shiva in the foreground and Cass in the background. Again, it's on YouTube if you're watching us. Yeah, just gorgeous, fantastic, and there's so much action in the book. I mean, which makes sense. These are two of the best fighters in DCU, so why wouldn't there be fantastic fighting? So I was blown away by this first issue. It hugely exceeded my expectations. Um, the only reason I didn't put it in my top 5 is because I knew you would put it in yours, and I'd get to talk about it.
Oh yeah,
I get to talk about it anyway. So
yeah.
yeah,
Good job,
definitely,
Tate Brombal. Yeah.
yeah, definitely recommend picking it up. I mean, it's been a long time since Cassandra Cain has had her own solo series, and this is definitely worthy of her return to a solo series. So yeah, definitely recommend it. Okay, up next we have Plastic Man No More, number 3, written by Christopher Cantwell. Alex Linz is the artist. Jacob Edgar handles the art for pages 2 through 5, and then we have Marcelo Maiello on colors and Becca Carey on letters. I got to see Chris Cantwell at the comic book block party that I mentioned earlier this weekend. Hopefully we're going to have him on to talk about Plastic Man No More at some point, because I can sort of sense this idea of a relationship between fathers and sons. Chris has sons himself. That's sort of a core motivation for Plastic Man in this series. So if you haven't been following along, basically in the first issue, Plastic Man saved the Justice League from certain death, I guess you'd say, to put it in comic book terms. But the blast that he was shot with, this kind of laser weapon or what have you, now his body's breaking down. So it's losing, his plastic body is losing its cohesion, like just like regular plastic can degenerate over time. That's what's happening to him. So he goes to Wayne Enterprises and gets the help of this woman who's sort of an expert in polymers, and she says, "Yeah, this was always going to happen to you at some point, but because of this weapon that blasted you, it's going to happen, sooner and quicker now." And so what I love about it is he's not necessarily concerned about himself, what this means for himself, the fact that he's going to die. He's more concerned about his son, who has the same powers as him, who's a member of the Teen Titans, and the lengths Plastic Man is willing to go in order to make sure that his son survives. So he's made some really interesting choices, some choices that probably are more easily reconciled with his criminal past than his current role as a superhero on the Justice League. And everything's coming to a head with what happened last issue. I mean, basically, he has to go kidnap one of the members of the Metal Men because he needs his body as like fissionable material to create a nuclear reaction that will rebind his molecules together, basically. But more, again, not for himself to survive, but for his son. He's seeking a cure so the same thing doesn't happen to his son. But all along, he's been this, and it's been shown throughout the series to great effect by Christopher Cantwell. He's not listened to. He's not respected by his fellow team members at the Justice League. He's sort of the jokey guy that they're almost laughing at him rather than with him, or his voice is just not heard. He's ignored because he's not, an A-lister, as it were. And so as things start to unravel for him and some of the things he's done come to light, he's having to go across that line even further than he initially wanted to. Like none of this is planned in terms of last issue when he kidnapped that member of the Metal Men that he needed.
Uranium.
Uranium. Because where else are you going to get uranium? The rest of the Metal Men are killed, and he didn't mean for that to happen. In this issue, there's another, I'm not going to spoil who, but there's another member of the Justice League that's killed, that he has a hand in because he basically has no choice. And when you see all this happen, you realize, how he keeps getting in further and further, over his head because of what he wants to do in terms of saving his son and the choices he has to make. And he's almost trapped in a way. And he ended up asking the question, is it worth it? I mean, obviously, if you're a parent, you'd do anything to save your kid, but it's almost like he's selling his soul in order to get that done, compromising beyond anything that he had originally thought he was going to have to do. And it's very tragic in a way. And the art from Alex Linz is very stylized, and it really suits the story, especially whenever we see Plaz up close and he looks like he's melting because, again, his body's breaking down. So, this is not a story that I would say is, fun or lighthearted by any means. It's pretty heavy stuff, which is really interesting to choose Plastic Man to tell this type of story because he is such a kind of a fun character that you don't think about being able to tell serious stories with, which is why I think this is so brilliantly done by Christopher Cantwell. So I do recommend it. It's Black Label, it's out of continuity. But if you want to read something that really subverts expectations for a character, I would definitely recommend picking this up. Anything to add to that, Rocky?
Yeah, it's just interesting how Cantwell has sort of scripted this Plastic Man for this Black Label because there's definitely I applaud his sense of tragedy that he's given Plastic Man because I always thought of him like sort of a jokey character, but understanding that behind the humor, like as effective as he has been as a member of the Justice League, he's managed to convey the idea that even when he succeeds as a member of the Justice League, he often ends up succeeding on his own merits. He works on his own. He doesn't seem to. How can you be a member of a team for so many years, decades under, at least 10 years under the timeline of this story, and not have any close friends, really, other than really the Bibbo, the chimp, and even that friendship is somewhat strained. And there's a tragedy to this, and the fact that he wants to create a nuclear explosion in an isolated area to try to save his son, and not tell any member of the Justice League, and to kidnap another hero to do it, of the middleman uranium. There's a tragedy there, but it's almost like, well, I won't say Breaking Bad because it's not that extreme, but there's definitely tragedy here, and I want to like grab Plastic Man and stretch him and stretch his brain and snap it back and snap him back into thinking rationally. Like, what the hell are you doing, buddy? I mean, you got good intentions here, but your actions are terrible, and yet I can understand them. And that's why this story works. And kudos to Cantwell for pulling me into the story. And it possesses verisimilitude to me, which, frankly, I was fearful that it wouldn't have that when I've read the first issue. So he's managed to pull me back into the story with this issue.
Yeah, especially when Plastic Man quits the Justice League. He finally has enough of them, kind of using them as a punching bag.
Yeah, that's kind of what did it. Yeah.
Yeah, he's standing up for himself. It's like, yeah, about time. I don't know what it says about the rest of the heroes that Campbell's, writing here, but yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Next up, we have JSA #1, debut issue written by Jeff Lemire, art by Diego Orlatugi, colors by Luis Guerrero, letters by Steve Wands. I really, really enjoyed this issue from Jeff Lemire. Now, when he was on the show not too long ago, he talked about this being the bucket list book for him to do, how JSA was in the first comic he ever read, which was reprints from some Paul Levitt's JSA. And he's been really looking forward to doing this. And then, DC offered him this, and that's sort of how DC got him back in the fold. We know he's going to be doing Absolute Flash next year. But in terms of this Justice Society book, again, there's a lot to like. This is called Ragnarok Part 1. We know that the villains that the Justice Society is going to go up against is the Injustice Society, which Jeff talked about that. If you have some A-listers, some characters that have been around for a long time, you need a credible threat, and that's who the Injustice Society is. But what's interesting is the way he sets up this first issue. A lot of the most senior members of the Justice Society aren't in this issue, or they're in the issue, but they're captured. They're sort of off the table. They're doing other things. So Jay Garrick, Alan Scott, the Ted Grant Wildcat, Dr. Fate, even though he's newer, Khalid doesn't have as much experience as past Dr. Fates. He's one of the more powerful members, and then Hawkman and Hawkwoman. And so it's a little bit of divide and conquer. They don't know where they are. They don't know what they're up to. We know that they're trapped in the Tower of Fate, and they're being attacked by unknown forces. But the rest of the team is trying to find them. They need to rescue them, but they're also dealing with this threat of the Cobra Cult. And there's some dysfunction in how they're dealing with them. Specifically, Obsidian seems to be, and the Yolanda Montez, I think is her last name. The version of Wildcat. They're a little more gun-ho. They're a little more violent. They're a little more willing to, get right up to the line of what's morally and ethically right in order to get the information they need from these Cobra soldiers, these Cobra cult members that they capture. Whereas Jade, who's acting as the commissioner or the chairman of this Justice Society right now, is reminding them, hey, if we cross those lines, we're no better than they are, which is kind of that classic superhero trope when it comes to how you want to act, golden rule, if you will. And so there's a lot of tension there. And we find out later there's a reason for Obsidian acting that way. Like at first I thought, well, this is going to be an interesting character dynamic. Jeff Lemire talked about how he was going to have different factions within the team and they were going to play off each other. And so, early on when Obsidian and Jade are kind of going back and forth, which they've always gotten along pretty well, but here they don't. I thought, okay, well, that could be some of that dramatic attention. Siblings don't always get along. But we find out later in the book, this isn't Obsidian. We don't know where Obsidian is. This is Johnny Sorrow, a member of the Injustice Society who is in some way imitating or impersonating Obsidian. So now it makes even more sense that he's there to sort of sow discord and be the spy, be the mole. And so that even ratcheted up for me even more. I was like, oh, that's really cool. Now we understand why it's happening. And he's doing a great job. Obviously, he's managed to convince the Yolanda Wildcat to buy into what he's doing. So clearly there's going to be layers upon layers. It's a big cast. Obviously, with all these different members. I mean, we've got Jade and Obsidian that I mentioned. We've got Sandman. We've got Jesse Quick and Hourman who are in a relationship, but also there's dramatic tension there because they're not agreeing. Jesse Quick is a little bit more leaning toward the side of Obsidian and Yolanda Wildcat, and Rex is like, you didn't even tell me. So, and she's like, why should I? Do I have to get your permission? Like, again, interesting character dynamic. So we've got all of them. Plus we have the 6 that that are trapped in the Tower of Fate, as I mentioned. Plus we have Dr. Midnight, who is keeping an eye on Jakeem. Apparently when the Justice Society were attacked and those 6 members disappeared, Jakeem, who's the current Johnny Thunder, if you will, who, holds that genie or whatever you call that energy beam. He was gravely injured, so he's in a coma. Dr. Midnight, who Jeff Lemire mentioned as sort of a surprise character that's become a favorite of his, is going to have a prominent role. So she's there as well. So again, it's a very big cast, but I think Lemire did a really good job of making sure everybody got a little bit of time, so we kind of understand who's going to be on the team. And everybody has their favorite Justice Society members. They will show up eventually. Jeff did talk about that, having people and fans reach out and say, hey, when so-and-so going to show up? When so-and-so? I mean, again, it's a tough task when you have a team that's been around as long as the Justice Society to give a little bit of time for everybody. But yeah, a lot of other people are going to show up, from Power Girl to members of Infinity Incorporated, which Jeff was a big fan of that series as well. So that's probably why Jade and Obsidian play such a big role here. The only thing for me that I don't really buy into, and I haven't, and this is just me, I have to do that thing that I tell you all the time. Like, I gotta buy into what DC editorials tell me. I've never been a big fan of Khalid as Dr. Fate. I like Kent Nelson, Dr. Fate. Even the version in the Flash movie, played by Pierce Brosnan. I just like that version. I'm not into the young teenager version of Dr. Fate. It just doesn't work that well for me. But that's nothing on Jeff at all. I just don't care for the character. But overall, I was super impressed with this first issue. I really enjoyed it. The Diego Orlatugi art he's perfectly suited for this book. When I found out he was the artist on it, I was like, what a great choice, because he did a fantastic job on the Jay Garrick Flash series that Jeremy Adams wrote, because he's got this youthful energy to his art. But it does feel like a little bit of a throwback style, which you want for a Justice Society book, because they are a team that's been around for so long. So I was really impressed with this first issue. I really enjoyed it, probably even more than I expected to. Because I've always been a fan of the Justice Society, but they're not favorites. They're not up there with like Superman and Green Lantern for me. And I don't even know if they'd be up there with the Justice League. I probably have liked them more than like Teen Titans or the Outsiders. And I haven't read that Justice Society run that Jeff Johns did that everybody holds in reverence. I wasn't reading comics at the time it came out, and I just have never made the time to go back and read it. Really but I know for a lot of people that's sort of the definitive run of JSA. Yeah. So I'll be curious to hear your thoughts, because I know you have read that, and I know you're a fan of the Justice Society as well. I was actually surprised this wasn't in your top 5. But anyway, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, actually, it was a tough choices. I want to give full props to Jeff Lemire. I mean, he had an unenviable task here. He is doing Jeff Johns level work. The unbelievable number of players that he managed in one issue. He's managed to deal with an extraordinary cast, come up with actual character moments, established significant characterization between at least 7 or 8 different characters, massive amounts of action, scripted that. If I'm nitpicking, and this is a minor nitpick, I'm a little bit confused. I kind of forget why the Green Lantern and Alan Scott, and why are they in the Tower of Fate? I forgot how they got there. I don't think I didn't feel that there was enough explanation for that in here, other than the fact that you just mentioned that they were attacked and suddenly they're in the Tower of Fate. but that's minor. I mean, that's really easy for me to catch on to. Okay, I get it. We're hitting the ground running. What I really, and to just top it off, I don't need to go into the details you did. You did a great job. I will just add that when I compare this to the Justice League, because I'm always thinking, okay, we have Justice League United now, or Unlimited, Justice League Unlimited. What the hell do we need the Justice Society for? Jeff Lemire just convinced me in one issue why I need a Justice Society comic, because they have a different feel. They really do feel like a different team than the Justice League. They do feel closer. They do feel a little bit more down to earth. They feel a little bit more visceral, more grounded, and they're more street level. And it just, you feel that. And I even love the Cobra being the bad guys again, classic Cobra, as in DC Cobra, not Energon Universe. To me, Cobra is always going to be the DC Cobra, not the G.I. Joe Cobra. And I just really love this. And again, so much legwork being done here. I think he's done a really good job. And again, it's another reason to get into DC All In.
Yeah, you're right. We don't know much about why these 6 were taken. I think it's almost a throwaway line in the book. The team that's still there, I mentioned Obsidian, Jade, Sandman, Jesse Quick, Hourman. They were off in Opal City and New York dealing with a Cobra attack. And we're just told something attacked the Brownstone and took Alan J, Ted, Khalid, and the Hawks. And Jakeem was gravely wounded. So, yeah, we have no idea who took them, why, and how they ended up in the Tower of Fate. I imagine that'll play out over the next couple of issues. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Like the work he did was just fantastic. Yeah, just fantastic. And as I mentioned, we know more characters are going to be showing up. I mean, they're even called out here like, hey, should we call in reservist? And they show Stargirl, Nuklon, Fury, Mr. Terrific, Power Girl. And I love what Jade says. She's like, the last thing we need is more people running around doing whatever the hell they want. Like, she's just like, no, we'll figure this out. We'll call for help if we need it. So, all right, well, let's move on. Next up, we have DC Horror Presents Creature Commandos, issue number 2. David Dastmalchian is the writer. Jesus Hervas is the artist. Alex Squirmus on colors. Ferran Delgado on letters. He was at that comic book block party this last weekend, but it was kind of late in the day. And like I said, I had to drive 7 hours back, and he had a big line already. Like as soon as he sat down, he already had a giant line. So I wanted to talk to him and mention how much we're enjoying his Knights versus Samurai. But I was like, man, I can stand in line for this, for an hour to talk to him for 30 seconds and then drive home, or I can just drive home now. So I left, but yeah, he was there and clear that he has a following in terms of comic, because a lot of people that were standing in lines, they either had Knights versus Samurai to get signed, they had Creature Commandos to get signed, or they had his Count Crawley comics to be signed. So yeah, he's making a name for himself as a writer. So for me, this was only okay. I haven't really been enjoying it that much. The art's kind of messy, and there's not characters that interest me that much. But you had it in your top 5, so let us know what you think.
Well, I want to be clear here. I'm giving some of these new titles, I'm giving them extra slack because I want to support new ideas for DC, and I know this might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but as much as the new 52 in DC was a miss for me, I really, really applauded what DC did by coming out with so many different kinds of comics. And I actually really liked that there was even a Creature Commandos in the new 52, or Frankenstein and the Agents of whatever the hell it was. In any event,
Frankenstein, Agent of Shade.
Agent Shade, yes, I enjoyed that. But this kind of has like a 1970s. This has a 1970s Marvel monster vibe to it for me, and it feels like a 70s DC comic on the inside with the lettering, and it feels that way. And it's an odd combination. We got Brainiac of all people as the villain here, and we meet Velcro is sort of like the vampire character. We got Dog Girl, who's the werewolf character, and we got this Mina character, who I think is sort of like a Medusa character, and who is needed to control the Frankenstein character named Lucky. And in this issue, we get sort of like the backstory, what sort of prompted the U.S. government, the faction of the U.S. government, has been trying to create a monster team to deal with supernatural threats. And the original iteration of the team was actually destroyed and the first half of the issue is showing that adventure, which actually starred Zatanna, with Zatanna accidentally showing up and releasing a supernatural creature that ends up. Zatanna makes a big mistake, and she ends up doing more harm than good and releases a supernatural creature that ends up destroying the original creature Commandos. And ultimately, the only one to survive was was Lucky, that the Frankenstein character, whose mind was wiped by Dr. West, and who ends up forming a new creature commando team starring Velcro, the vampire character, and Dog Girl, and it's again, these are brand new characters, and what David Dastmalchian has done here is, he sort of pulled me in, and I'm cutting him a lot of slack, and I enjoyed this. These are new characters. Now, if I'm going to nitpick, I'll say that, well, you know what? I feel that in a sense, it reminded me a little bit of Task Force Z with Task Force Zombies, the Matthew Rogenberg series that was sort of hit and miss, because it felt like this is like Suicide Squad but for monsters. And so basically, one could criticize this and say, well, why the hell is the government doing this with forming these creating this monster squad, monsters fighting monsters, and then the government struggling to try to control their monsters while taking out other monsters they can't control? It's like, well, why don't you just kill them all? I mean, that's the cynical side of me. But then it wouldn't be a story here. But I guess that's the struggle. They have a supernatural threat. I'm not really sure what it is. I mean, we know Brainiac's the bad guy here, but I'm not really sure. It's still unclear what Brainiac's motivation is here. What's his end game? We know that Brainiac he's got various, he's got sort of like spies all over the place that he can use as exploding weapons, which is hinted at the end. And so the end game here, Brainiac's end game, it's still not clear what it is. And interestingly enough, at least in my mind, what the hell does this have to do with monsters? This is a very eclectic mix. And that's like, I kind of like that, because I like, this is David Dastmalchian. He's thinking outside the box. He's brought Brainiac, and then we got these different monsters. They got their own different types of personalities about them. Already we're getting dissensions amongst the team. He's doing some character work here, and he's just hinting at this Mina character, who I think it has snakes for hair, and I imagine she's got Medusa-like powers, but she seems to be more of the compassionate. She seems to be the moral compass of the team, and maybe has the ability to control and calm down the Lucky Frankenstein monster. And anyways, I think it's good. We're just 2 issues in here, and we got a lot established already. And yeah, I'm all in on this too. I'm having a lot of fun so far, and it is. I'm still feeling the Halloween vibes, so this was a good time to read it.
Yeah, definitely has a scary monster vibe for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, next up we have another book on your list, Poison Ivy, issue number 27, written by G. Willow Wilson, art by Marcio Takara, colors by Arif Prianto, letters by Hassan Otsman Elhal. Give us your thoughts on this one.
All right, sorry, I'm just bringing it up here. I usually work fast enough so there's no break, no pregnant pause as I'm slowly getting ready here. But first, I want to give a shout out to the whole array of variant covers here. It's generally a pet peeve of mine, variant covers. It still is. But boy, oh boy, Poison Ivy just has some really gorgeous covers. There's one by Jenny Frison, and there's another one. I don't know who the other artist is, but good Lord.
Nubovich? They're just listed as one name, Noobovich, Nubovich.
Yeah. Just really gorgeous covers.
Yeah, I mean, that's worthy. That's a Nightwing worthy cover, right?
Yeah.
Showing a little booty action right there.
Yeah, little booty action. No complaints from me. Usually we got some breast action from Jenny Frison. So whether you're into booty or TNA, they got you covered with Poison Ivy. Yeah, I I was really impressed, and in fact, it even made the speculator top 10 list. The Poison Ivy, Swamp Thing, Feral Trees that we reviewed last week, and bloody hell, I stopped buying the physical copies of Poison Ivy, but I don't know, J. Willow Wilson, damn you, woman. I mean, I try to escape, but she's pulling me back, and I damned if I didn't put 27 on my pull list here, and I might have to continue collecting this because I'm just interested in this story. Poison Ivy she's continuing to evolve. Poison Ivy's moral compass here continues to be skewed, but that's kind of the way we like it. She gets confronted here to the surprise of nobody following the story. There's a group of terrorists going around claiming that they're doing the bidding of Poison Ivy. So naturally, Batman's going to get involved and confront Poison Ivy. And Poison Ivy points out something to Batman, and Batman actually believes her. And she says, I mean, since when would I not take credit for what a bunch of eco-terrorists are doing? Trust me, I've got nothing to do with this. I've been behaving, I've been, enjoying the company of not just Harley Quinn, but, Janet from HR. I've been doing my own thing. I added that last bit in. But she's frustrated, and Batman can see her frustration. And Batman basically says, okay, well, just deal with it. Try to deal with it, and then Batman takes off. Batman is always keeping an eye on her. Meanwhile, Janet from HR continues to be well used. I mean, she started off as a joke of a character in a storyline that was probably the least interesting storyline way back at the beginning of this series. But Janet from HR has grown into a character that is not only interesting but likable, and has turned into something that she's more than just a third wheel, which, when you think about it, is quite an accomplishment when you consider that Harley Quinn often shows up in this comic with Poison Ivy. What the hell do we need another small, innocent-looking blonde for? Well, she seems to add some comic relief, and she does seem to bring out some different sides of Poison Ivy and even Harley Quinn when she shows up. And in this issue, it's hinted that Janet from HR might actually be establishing a relationship with, God forbid, Killer Croc of all things. That's new to go from. She's going to be the only character in the DC universe that has arguably been intimate with. Can you imagine Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn? That's a pretty good to have on your on your list. But Killer Croc, oh my God! But hey, no judgment. Whatever floats her boat. But in any event, fantastic art here throughout, and I want to give a shout out to the artist Takara, first name
Marcio
Takara. Yeah, continues to be fantastic. Poison Ivy ultimately confronts this group, and she's surprised to hear that they pretty much worship her. I mean, she wants to stop them. She's maybe anticipating some level of violence, but quite the opposite is happening here. And I'm really curious to see where J. Willow Wilson's going to go with the storyline, because I'm just speculating here, but I mean, if you've had I'm thinking through most of the time that most of the citizens of the DC universe have known or thought of Poison Ivy, they think of her as an eco-terrorist, I would think. And so, it's not surprising that a lot of people who are aggressive about protecting the environment might very well, if they're going to join an eco-terrorist group, might very well think that Poison Ivy would be on their side. And the interesting aspect of this is, what does Poison Ivy do? I mean, because really, if they're following her dictates and they're just doing things that she's certainly done far worse in the past than what they've done, or certainly on par, how is she going to judge them? How does she address that? How do you address people that are doing what you used to do and then try to tell them that, oh, no, don't do that anymore? It's sort of like what she said to Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing pointed out to her in that one shot that, hey, she says, look, I've tried to destroy the earth before, the environment, I've tried to wipe out humanity before. And Swamp Thing says, yeah, but you never did. You always held back. And so Swamp Thing reminded her of the better angels of her nature. Now she's got to try to do that with the group that is claiming that she's leading them on their eco-terrorism. And I just think it's very interesting the way that the character of Poison Ivy is progressing under Wilson's scripts, and I continue to enjoy this. Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, so in a way, it's like, well, of course, this is the direction that the series was going to go after, basically the first, 2 years that we had, the first 24 issues, as we talked about with one big story. And it's exactly what G. Willow said when I talked to her at San Diego Comic Con. And we talked about her becoming a more relevant character as sort of environmental concerns in the real world have become, more of an issue and more of a concern. So it's really interesting where she's at, and I think G. Willow's doing a fantastic job of reflecting that in the books, no more so than in the scene here with Batman, where Batman gives Poison Ivy the benefit of the doubt. That was a great moment. It was great character work and what have you. So um, yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying in terms of her, her being this reluctant, you know, uh, object of worship for this group. She's their Green Knight or what have you, and what does that mean? And yeah, her past has been problematic in terms of the things that she's done. It's clear that she has a little bit of a different outlook now. I like that. Um, because here's the thing, like, so often you and I complain about, like, God, DC, just leave your villains villains. Like, let the bad guys be bad guys, let the good guys be good guys. Story has become more complicated and nuanced over time, and the readership has sort of demanded that in a way, because we're more sophisticated, and comics skew toward an older audience than they used to be able to write books that were clearly two-dimensional characters. Everything was white hat, black hat, black and white, because they were aimed at 10-year-olds. Well, comics are not, the majority of comics are not bought by 10-year-olds anymore, so you need more complicated stories. But in a way, it's still a legitimate concern, right? Like, if everybody's gray, if everybody's in the middle, if nobody's a hero, nobody's the villain, it limits the type of stories you can tell. But in the case of Poison Ivy, with them making her more of a character, more of an anti-hero, more of a character that's a little bit in the moral gray area, it's okay if you do it like this, because it makes sense, as opposed to because Harley Quinn sells a lot of merchandise, that we're just going to turn her into a hero. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't
Yeah.
feel earned. Um, what and I'm not saying Poison Ivy's a hero yet by any stretch, and she may not ever become a hero. But this idea of where she is now, living more in this gray area, it feels earned, um, through the story that G. Willow Wilson is telling, and that's really compelling and interesting. So I think that she's doing a fantastic job. The Marcio Takara art, I mean, he's the perfect artist for this, just based on his style. It just feels organic and sort of loose and what have you. It's not my favorite style personally, but it really works for this book. So,
Yeah.
all right, let's move on. Up next, we have a book that didn't make either of our top 10, so I'm just going to mention it real briefly. It's Shazam number 17. Josie Campbell is the writer, Dan McDade on pencils and inks, Roberto Paggi handles inks for pages 11 through 19, Trish Mulvihill on colors, Troy Petrie on letters. Continuing the story of the Shazam family and Billy as literally a separate person than Shazam, which is an interesting dynamic. Um, Literally in the Rock of Eternity, we see Billy and Shazam as two different people. They talk to each other. I'm excuse me, I'm still getting used to that idea. And I wasn't necessarily a fan of it to begin with, but it is what we have. And I think there is storytelling potential there. So we'll have to see how it plays out. The rest of the dynamics and what's going on, they're okay. I am curious about what's going to happen next. There's just too many other good books for this to make my top 5 this week. So it's not that it's a bad book. Just there were other titles I enjoyed more. Anything to add, Rocky?
Not really. Although I do like the fact that Freddy is getting more attention, and there's more focus on the family, and there ought to be tension between the members of the Shazam family. And maybe some can disagree with me, and you think, well, it should just be all fun and roses, and everyone's getting along, and they're a functional foster family, and that's the way they should be portrayed. But no, I mean, family is more interesting when there's a little bit of drama, especially in comic books, and especially if they got superpowers. So I kind of like that. I kind of like, and I can see that this is Freddy is getting more interesting as a character, and who's to say that he might there might not be some moral compasses being skewed here moving forward. I predict probably in the next few weeks or in the next few months, I wouldn't surprise me if Shazam is in my top 5. No, not this week, but I have a feeling it might be getting there, to be honest. I'll leave it at
All right.
that.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see. Oh, this next book did make your top 5. It's Batman number 154. Oh man, what an ending! The Dying City Part 2, written by Chip Zdarsky. Art is by Carmine Di Giandomenico. Colors by Tomeo More. Letters by Clayton Cowles. Let us know your thoughts on this one.
Yeah. I gotta. It's interesting. Chip Zdarsky is he's. I don't know. I get the impression that he's come under some degree of criticism. I find online there seems to be some. I don't know. I perceive, at least on social media, that he's maybe getting short thrift on his Batman run. I enjoy it more than what I perceive others have, and I think I'm really enjoying this storyline, and this is the Dying City Part 2. I really like what he's doing with the Riddler. Mayor Nakano has been murdered. We get more. The investigation is continuing here. Mayor Nakano's wife is a prime suspect. It's revealed here. Harvey Bullock discovers that she's been having an affair. Not only that, the commissioner himself, who's Vandal Savage, he is also a prime suspect. The Riddler's a prime suspect, as well as this, I guess, Cole character, who's a member, head of the Court of Owls, who basically they needed to get some legislation passed from the city in order to help push through Riddler's Edward Nigmatech, his Nigtech or Nigmatech technology. And so everyone's got motives to want the mayor dead. Even the deputy mayor who is having dinner at one point here with the Riddler and what's this other character's name again? Leonid Cole, a member of the Court of Owls. Batman confronts them. They move to arrest Batman for breaking and entering. I mean, Batman is definitely on the outs here with the city, and there's a mystery here. Who the hell killed the mayor? What exactly is going on? What's and then we get into this almost absurd notion that somebody's claiming that Bruce Wayne has a brother. And it's revealed that Bruce Wayne's parents, that Thomas Wayne, according to Leslie Tompkins, tells Bruce that his father had an affair with a woman named Tara many years ago, and perhaps perhaps they had an offspring, perhaps they had a child, and so Bruce Wayne maybe very well does have a half brother. Bruce Wayne is entertaining that possibility. But there's no real evidence of that yet, although there's been a claim brought forward. I can't help but the lawyer side of me. There's some significant weaknesses in the plot points and verisimilitude in terms of the claim. Frankly, of somebody's claiming, this person claiming to be the offspring, coming forward wanting to get half of the shares, and Bruce Wayne entertaining the notion, and then the horrible advice by Bruce Wayne's assistant, who we know to be a plant from Riddler, encouraging him, you should settle this, Bruce, give away half of the shares of Wayne Tech to this person and then just buy them back. Why the hell would you do that? Just really stupid advice. But in any event, I'm letting that go because I like the drama. And Bruce Wayne's getting it from all sides. The public is against sort of Bruce Wayne because he's almost like considered. Zardasky is sort of having the public perceive Bruce Wayne as almost like, God forbid I use a real world analogy, almost like an Elon Musk with his own, however you want to interpret that, because I know Musk is a controversial character on multiple, in different ways to different people. But there's in our real world of fake news and political drama and cultural and political toxicity, there's some elements here that Zardasky is introducing in here, and it's affecting the public perception of Bruce Wayne. And Bruce Wayne himself is sort of attacked as a citizen of Gotham by people, and he ends up being protected by this Commander Star who he doesn't like. But it's interesting here that he's not just Batman, but it's also the Bruce Wayne himself is under attack. The Wayne legacy is under attack by a claim of a half by another offspring, potential half sibling of Bruce Wayne. And there's a lot of moving parts here. And to top it all off, at the end, we have Commissioner Gordon and Batman doing further investigations. And for some reason, Commissioner Gordon points a gun at Batman. I'm not really sure why, if he's mind controlled or what's going on. But clearly there's a lot of stress and anxiety going on, or something's going on. The ending was a little bit unclear to me. I'm not really sure what happened there, but I've got a lot of questions, and I'm asking the right questions, and I'm intrigued. And I think I really like all the elements, the political, social, cultural, the personal, everything that Zardasky's done to pull me into this issue. And it's also built on storylines that he's had that we followed over the last year. And it's really worked for me. So I really enjoyed it. It was definitely in my top 5. What are your thoughts?
They're insinuating that Jim Gordon was having an affair with Nakano's wife, and he's the one that killed Nakano. That's the ending. That's what's happening at the end. That's why you see Gordon and Batman like sitting down at the crime scene of where Nakano was killed. What?
I didn't get that until you told me that, but that makes sense now. Yeah, I didn't get that at first, to be honest.
Yeah, because Batman's on the phone with Bullock, and he's saying, we got into her phone, and we found a lot of text. It's not a smoking gun, but it's pretty close. She was having an affair, and then Batman turns around, and Gordon is pointing a gun at Batman, and he says, "I was defending myself. I don't know how." And Batman's like, "You're pointing a gun at me?" And he punches Gordon, and Gordon's there. "I didn't mean to. You got to believe me." And Batman is just, he's shocked, he's stunned, and Bullock's still on the phone, on the line, saying, "Hey, are you okay, Batman? Like, you stopped responding. Like, what's going on?" So every possibility that it was self-defense, right? It sounds like what happened was Nakano found out about the affair. He picked up an object. He was going to basically, hit Gordon over the head with it. He's going to attack Gordon. So Gordon shot him. And then Gordon put the, little trophy or whatever it was back, but he didn't put it back quite exactly in the same spot. That's how Batman noticed it was moving. But yeah, the smoking gun is those text messages. But then Gordon pulling a gun on Batman, like, I like Jim Gordon. Jim Gordon is one of my favorite DC characters. He's up there with Alfred. Is one of my favorite. Obviously, my favorite's Lois Lane, but Alfred probably second, Jim Gordon probably third. So and there's been no hints or clues of this or whatever, that they were having an affair. So but which Zardasky's doesn't he's not obligated to give us clues or whatever, but. Man, Gordon killing Nakano. Now, don't get me wrong. I thought Nakano was a weak character. I thought he was an idiot. I think I used the word moron a lot when I described him because his policies were frankly stupid. And it never made sense. Like, he was a cop, and then he loses an eye, so he decides Batman's a bad thing. Like, you're just an idiot, dude. So, but nobody deserves to die. And if it truly was self-defense, I get it, but it's still... It still feels a little dirty. It still feels like it taints Jim Gordon as a character a little bit. But but I can't say that it's not like a holy shit ending and like, wait, what? Like, this is not like an ending or a plot point where you go, oh, he was mind controlled, or oh, that's not really Jim Gordon, because of the type of. I mean, this is like domestic drama here.
Yeah. I don't see, he would never point a gun at Batman. I just really got the impression, and then I wasn't sure why was he hit before? Why was his eye all sore? And then I get it. It's still interesting to me. It's still interesting. I'm definitely involved now, but I actually missed that. I didn't think it was. I don't like that way that was played out. It didn't. That doesn't work for me. If it doesn't, that doesn't feel like Jim Gordon. It just
Yeah, I
doesn't
mean,
feel like Jim Gordon.
I don't care what Jim Gordon has done or not done or whatever. Moment of weakness. Nakano clearly was, always working. His relationship with his wife was troubled even before he got shot. When he was still a cop, he had a dysfunctional marriage. So, and this kind of stuff happens. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it does happen. But yeah, where it does fall apart, I just don't see a world in which Jim Gordon ever pulls a gun on Batman. Like, what do you like? No, that doesn't happen.
Huh?
It just doesn't. It just doesn't happen. But I'll leave that aside and just
Yeah.
say I don't know what the hell's going to happen. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. But yeah, that's part of why this wasn't in my top 5. I just didn't care for that moment. So anyway, let's move on. Next book is not in either of our top 5s, but we will mention it briefly. My Adventures with Superman, number 6, written by Josie Campbell, art by Pablo M. Collar, colors by Hi-Fi, letters by Lucas Catoni. The Ones Who Fell to Earth finale. I've said this before. Josie said it when she came on the show to talk about the series, My Adventures with Superman. These 6 issues basically comprise what would have been the holiday episode of the My Adventures with Superman TV series that would fit between series or season 1 and season 2. Check it out if you're so inclined. It's very faithful to the characterization in the cartoon. The art by Pablo M. Collar feels very much like the art in the cartoon. It's very fun. It's very fresh. I really like the iteration of Lois and Superman here. We get a lot of Ma and Pa Kent. We get Jimmy Olsen. It's a lot of fun. But again, just tough competition this week, so it didn't make my top 5. Anything to add there, Rocky?
No. No, it didn't make my top 5, but again, if you're a fan of the series, you'd be a fool not to pick this up.
Yep, agreed. All right, up next we have Green Arrow 2024 annual number 1. This also didn't make our top 5. It's written by Joshua Williamson. Art is by Sean Isaacs and Amin K. Nahalapan. Colors by Romulo Fajardo Jr. Letters by Troy Petrie. It's a fun story. It's kind of Joshua Williamson's sort of swan song, if you will, on the Green Arrow character. It even on the final page says "The End, thank you." It's set way in the future on the island. It's sort of intimated that Oliver Queen is a grandparent at this point because we get a bunch of kids. We're not told whose parents are whose, but you can kind of tell based on what they look like. Probably Connor Hawk. We've got probably a son for Roy. I'm sure one of these kids is supposed to be Leon's, what have you. But anyway, he's telling them some stories about when he was still active as Green Arrow and this arsonist that he was going after. And it kind of jumps through time. It's an okay story. It definitely reinforces the feel and the concept that there's now a Green Arrow family, which Rocky and I have both gone on record as saying it's not our favorite. And for the same reason that a lot of these families don't really work for us, right? Like I've said it so many times over on the Marvel side of things, when you have literally 2 characters that are called Spider-Man, then then the main Spider-Man stops becoming so special, right? When you dilute it down, when you have 100 characters that have the ability to run fast and they're called the Flash, then if everybody's special, nobody's special, and that's sort of what we're getting at here. Now you can make up for that with really great character drama and what have you, but that's not what we have here, and we're not meant to have that. This is very much meant to be sort of a celebration and a chance for Joshua Williamson to sort of reiterate what his Green Arrow run was about, which was a lot about family, which works for some characters. Personally, for me, that's not Green Arrow to me. To me, Green Arrow, street level character, dealing with mystery, crime noir, that sort of thing. That's what we're going to get. That's what we're shifting back to in the Chris Condon era of Green Arrow that we saw in, what was it, Green Arrow Legacy number 350 or whatever it was, where he's going to be, back in Star City, I guess, or perhaps Seattle, more of a street level character, more dealing with that sort of crime and mystery. And to me, that's where the character works best. This idea of him having, this huge supporting cast, again, it makes Oliver Queen himself less special. So there's nothing wrong with this. And I think it is a good send off and a good sort of period at the end of the sentence of Joshua Williamson's run, because it does lean into a lot of the themes that he had in his run. But again, that's just not who Green Arrow is as a character to me. So, and I didn't end up meaning to talk about this book as much as I did, but being what it is, I thought it was important to mention. So, anything to add, Rocky?
Not really. I'm just glad the Williamson era is over because I'm not a fan of the Green Arrow family. I love, again, I love Leo, and I love Roy Harper, but I like seeing that over in the pages of Teen Titans with Cheshire and all that jazz, and let Green Arrow be sort of like the lone Arrow man in Seattle. I like what Chris Kontos is doing.
Yeah. Really enjoyed that Chris Condon story, so we'll see how that plays out. Okay, last book made your top 5. Obviously would make my top 5 as well, but it's fine. We're going to break it down page by page. Like we said before, it's Absolute Superman #1. Jason Aaron is the writer. Rafael Sandoval handles the art. Ulysses Areola on colors. Becca Carey on letters. Again, everybody, we're going to do a deep dive. Look for that page by page over on the Comic Source YouTube channel soon. But we'll talk about it a little bit here. Rocky, why don't you kick it off?
Well, first of all, I think Jason Aaron's done a really great job here. This is, we know that this is an absolute. This was in a dark side universe with dark side energy, where this is very much an Earth that is, it's darker, and hope is far more difficult to come by. We certainly got hints of that in Absolute Batman. We got absolutely hints of that in Absolute Wonder Woman by Kelly Thompson, and here we're given a history of Krypton, which Jason Aaron very sort of expertly manages to draw a comparison between the lessons of a Krypton that they don't learn. Krypton doesn't learn this lesson, and it results in its destruction environmentally. And there's a lot of I love how he the relationship between Jor-El, Laura, and a young Kal-El. It's different because Kal-El is actually, he's an older child on Krypton. It's clearly he's not rocketed to Earth as an infant. He's rocketed to Earth as a young boy, and right away we know that that's different. We know that his memory, we know automatically that he's going to have more memories of his parents, of Jor-El and Laura. We also know that on this is and again, I want to be I want to leave. I don't want to give full spoilers here because we're doing the deep dive. I like the fact that when we're introduced to Superman, this mysterious man, this mysterious person who's going around and literally helping people around the Earth, and how he manages to do so, and what he's wearing, his suit. I love his containment suit, and while it's a containment suit, it's suggested that it contains the solar energy, but I suspect it more holds him back than actually helps him in a way. It's a computer. His suit, containment suit, actually talks to him and actually suggests to him that you can't. These people of Earth, they're just as bad as the ones on Krypton. They're you can't help them. They're destined for a particular bad fate. Just like you couldn't save Krypton, your father couldn't save Krypton. You won't be able to save these people. There's a pessimism even in the character in the suit that this young Superman character has to begin with, and yet he still seems to find the hope and the ability to help people but he doesn't have a lot of friends, and he's a loner. And Jason Aaron does such an expert job reinforcing that, but at the same time just building up the idea that this is a pretty cool epic Superman. And what I love about through most of this first issue is the idea is that we're hearing so much about this Superman character, about this character who's helping people, but we're getting bits and pieces of him to really sort of whet the appetite. And we get a version of Peacemaker here. We certainly get a version of Lois Lane. We get a version of what either we get mention of Lazarus Pits. We get hints of a villain that could either be a Brainiac type villain or perhaps a Ra's al Ghul type villain. So there's seeds that are planted here. We'll go into it more in the deep dive, but there's a lot of very interesting elements here. The art is absolutely fantastic. I mean, the art, my God, Rafa Sandoval on the art conveys an Earth that is eerily similar in terms of feel to the way Krypton was near its end. So there's almost a visual representation, a visual juxtaposition between the feeling of Earth being mined by corrupt officials and corrupt Lazarus organizations. And it's comparable to the final days of Krypton, and can Earth escape the fate of Krypton? That's the feeling that I'm getting, and throughout this, we know that Jor-El and Lara ultimately failed. We know that, but will what's it going to take for this young Superman to avoid the fate for Earth? Is our Earth going to have a different fate? Is this absolute universe Earth going to have a different fate than Krypton? Of course, we know it will, because it's Superman. But that feeling of that loss of the remnant of that spark of hope amongst darkness, Jason Aaron's done an excellent job with the help of Sandoval's art to really convey that, and it just works so well. You and I have sounded like broken records before, talking about the hope that we want to see in a Superman comic, and we sound like, tooting that same old thing. But I really got a sense of it here, and ironically enough, in a book called Absolute Superman, which focuses in many ways on a more cynical and darker Superman, and yet somehow, goddamn, I feel more hope in this with this Superman than I do in the mainstream universe right now. With apologies to Mark Waid. Fantastic. And I love the new role of Lois Lane. I think it's pretty cool. But we'll get into that more in the deep dive. We'll talk about it more, but I'm definitely curious to hear some of your thoughts.
Oh, I don't have anything to say. Like you said way more than I thought you were. So I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna save it for the deep dive.
Okay.
He is very much a loner, like you said. I love that. Because there's a mystery there, right? Not only a mystery for us as readers, we know more than the general populace of Earth, this version of Earth, but we don't know it all. So, there's those moments, those few moments in Superman the movie when he first shows up and catches Lois and catches the helicopter, and before Lois gets to interview him on her balcony and gets to publish the first sort of story about Superman and Superman letting everybody know who he is. There's that moment in time in the film and in the world, that the film portrays, of where nobody knows who he is, but there's all these questions, right? And there's that scene with Perry White, and he's like dropping newspapers on his desk from all different types of newspapers, asking who he is, who is Superman, where does he come from, that sort of thing. And that mystery, that's where we are in this world. And yeah, we see it through the eyes of various characters, whether it be Lois, whether it be this villain that's at some Lazarus Corporation research facility in Nevada. It could be based on the color palette of that scene. You think it's Brainiac. We see 3 pink lights and we see some green, whatever. But also green and pink. Yeah, that page there. If you're watching this on YouTube, green and pink also the colors of Lex Luthor often. So it could be Lex. Maybe it's an amalgamation of both. We'll have to wait and see. We get a glimpse at the Kent farm. And then, yeah, obviously Lois shows up in this issue as well, which I did not expect. I did not expect her to show up so early. But holy shit, she's got a very different role. And again, we'll talk about it in the deep dive. But this is my favorite comic I've read maybe this year. I loved it that much. I think I've already read it like 6 times. It's so amazing. The suit appears to be sentient. You mentioned that. And again, everybody go and read my article, my interview with Rafa Sandoval, because he talks about the suit and how important it is and what the role the suit's going to play. And yeah, tune into our deep dive. We'll go page by page. We'll be talking about it in much more detail. So if you think there's things you missed or you just want to know more about the story, go and check that out over on the Comic Source YouTube channel. Should be out either late on Wednesday or early Thursday. So yeah, that does it for the books this week. We do have a number of collections this week. And kind of on that note, I did want to mention, I got a chance to interview Cami Garcia earlier this week because she has the latest entry into her young adult Teen Titans line, Starfire, which is really fantastic. I got a chance to read it already. So I encourage everybody to go listen to that interview. You can listen to it on the podcast feed or over on the Comic Source YouTube channel. We talk about the YA Teen Titans line as a whole, and she gives us some background on teaming up with the artist Gabrielle Piccolo and why the setting keeps changing from New Orleans with the first the first book Raven, over to Georgia, then Tennessee. Now we're over in Santa Monica. Really, it was really interesting to hear her talk about that changing setting. But just love what she had to say. And these are what they call sort of a casual interpretations of these characters, in that they're a little more grounded, a little more real. But it was just a fantastic interview. So if you're so inclined and you want to check those out, I mean, they're New York Times bestsellers. All of them have made the New York Times bestseller list. There's a reason for that. They're really, really good. So go ahead and check that out and pick up the graphic novel if you're so inclined. Also, Primer, Clashing Colors, which we covered. Unlike the first volume of Primer, which came out as a graphic novel first and then got adapted into singles, second volume of Primer came out as single issues first, and now it's being collected. I got a chance to talk to Thomas Krajewski and Jennifer Murrow this last weekend. They were also at the comic book block party. They should be coming on soon to talk about it. And there's more coming. It's just that their writer got injured, their artist got injured. And so things are a little bit backed up. So we won't have volume 3 until next year. But we really enjoyed Primer, Clashing Colors. Fantastic story. There's more to come for that character. And then in terms of some other collections that are out today, DC Finest Batman Year 1 and 2 in trade. And those DC Finest are the smaller size, the 5x7 size. We also have Superman, the first superhero, gets a DC Finest collection, which basically collects some of the very first superhero stories for Superman. Action Comics 1 through 25, Superman 1 through 5, New York World's Fair #1. So it's reprinting Golden Age stuff. So if you're so inclined, you can pick that up. Also, The Batman First Night is being collected. That was the Dan Jurgens written Batman series with gorgeous art by Mike Perkins. We really, really enjoyed that story. So check that out if you're so inclined. Definitely recommend picking that up. Also, Green Lantern, Green Arrow, Hard Traveling Heroes. That very famous Denny O'Neil run with Mike Grell and Neil Adams. It's getting an omnibus. It is 1,376 pages. A lot of those hard traveling hero, Green Lantern, Green Arrow issues are very expensive. So if you want, more affordable way to pick them up, there's your chance. Also, Wildcats is getting a compendium, and this is not the recent Wildcats by either Warren Ellis or Matthew Rosenberg. This is going back and reprinting like the original Image series from Jim Lee with his art, Scott Williams, Alex Sinclair. So it collects Wildcats 0 through 13, 15 through 20. I think it doesn't have 14 because that was a crossover with another character that DC doesn't have the rights to. And then a bunch of other Wildcats material. It is 952 pages. So it's a huge amount of old school Wildstorm Wildcats content if you're so inclined. Also, Batwoman Elegy. So this is the Greg Rucka, J.H. Williams run of Batwoman of Kate Kane when she first showed up and took over the Detective Comics title. So Detective Comics 854 through 860 is what this collects. So it's about 200 pages for $20. If you're a fan of Kate Kane, you should pick that up. And then finally, we have Elseworlds Batman Volume 3 trade paperback. We know that Batman's one of the characters that has had the most Elseworlds books, most Elseworlds tales told, and this is continuing to collect those. So those are the collections that are out this week. Again, fantastic week. Not an easy, I guess I should say, other than my book of the week, which was pretty easy to pick. Man, if I had to pick, like if I set that aside, it would be really hard for me to choose because I thought there were some really, really great titles this week. But for me, one stood head and shoulders above the rest. I'm sure you can guess what it is. So I'll just say Absolute Superman for me. Yeah, like Rocky's got it up there before I even get a chance to say it. Yeah, Absolute Superman for me. Book of the week, book of the month, book of the year, perhaps. It's very rare to be as excited as I am or as I was for Absolute Superman. Like I've been looking forward to it since talking to Jason Aaron at San Diego Comic-Con. Like before that, I was a little bit on the fence about the whole Absolute Universe. But again, the energy at San Diego Comic-Con about the Absolute Universe was infectious. talking to Jason Aaron about Absolute Superman got me even more excited. And to have the book exceed those insanely high expectations that I had, that's just so rare. That's so rare. This is up
Yeah.
there with like my favorite books of all time. Like it just awesome. I can't wait to do our page by page deep dive into it.
Yeah.
So anyway, Rocky, your book of the week is Absolute Superman.
It has to be, and you know what? I give apologies to Tate Brombal because it would have been Batgirl for me because I just love the character so much. I love Cassandra Cain. Cassandra Cain's my favorite character of the DC universe. I've been collecting since 1976. So Tate, you're in good company, my friend. But you know, but Superman got me into comic books, and this was just I absolutely love it, and it just blew me away too. I mean it. So apologies to Cassandra Cain. I still love you. I still love Batgirl #1, but I got to give it to Absolute Superman, Jason Aaron. Man, you just did a fantastic job on this. And I look forward to the deep dive that we're going to be doing on your channel as well, which I'll leave the link below once we get that up and coming on your channel.
Yeah, and not just Jason Aaron, but Rafa Sandoval too, right? Like,
of course,
the art is so amazing. Like, again, I don't give away too much. Like the fact that like it, you know how when you have a really cool hot rod car and you paint flames on it, like he's got that like on his boots and on his wrists. It's so amazing. They're like on fire. Yeah, again, we'll cover it in the deep dive. But yeah, I don't think the issue and the story hits as hard as it does. It works as well as it does without that amazing Rafa Sandoval art, and not just in the action, but in the quiet moments as well. Not just in the quiet moments of Superman, but the other miners, the other Brazilians that are sort of these indentured slaves and what they're going through. It just works on all those levels. So again, go check it out on the Comic Source YouTube channel. Hopefully by the time you're hearing this, it won't be too long before we'll have it out. Again, do a search for the Comic Source on YouTube and subscribe. We appreciate the support. Once you're there, ring the notification bell, leave some comments below. We really appreciate it. I'd love to get comments going, conversations going in the comments, and leave some comments here on Rocky's channel as well. If you're listening on the audio only feed of the Comic Source, we appreciate it. We hope you're subscribed wherever you get your podcast, whatever platform or app you use. If you subscribe, you'll have access to, over 2,000 previous episodes of the Comic Source, interviews and reviews and coverage and all that sort of stuff. But if you are, be sure you head over to Rocky's channel where we do the DC Spotlight every week, Comic Space Boom, ! On YouTube. Again, leave some comments. Let us know what books you liked. What's your book of the week? Ring that notification bell. Go back and look at Rocky's amazing past content as well. Again, just by you guys supporting us, it gives us more access. We're getting more access than ever. Busier than ever doing interviews and what have you. So we really appreciate the support as always, and we'll talk to you next time.
Catch you later.